Steve here. Most people think the American Revolution was won with muskets and cannons. They're wrong. It was won and almost lost with money. Or more accurately, with worthless paper. Let's get into it.
All right, it's Friday, March 13th, 2026. You know that market you're watching right now? The system of capital and debt we trade in every single day? Its roots, they go all the way back to a bankrupt rebellion, and they're tangled up in a currency that was, literally, not worth the paper it was printed on. This is that story.
So let's set the scene. The year is 1775, and you have to think of the brand new United States as, well, a startup, a really high-risk one. They've got a world-changing mission statement, liberty and all that, but absolutely zero seed capital. George Washington has an army, sure, but that army needs gunpowder, it needs shoes, and more than anything, it needs to get paid.
And that right there was the fundamental problem, the fatal flaw in the whole business plan. See, the Continental Congress had no power to tax anybody. I mean, that's what the entire war was about, right? No taxation without representation. So how in the world are you supposed to fund the revolution when you've got no income? How do you run a war on an empty tank? And just look at this matchup. It's almost laughable. In one corner, you've got the British Empire, a global heavyweight. We're talking deep gold reserves and a tax system that actually works. And in the other corner, the colonies, a scrappy little penny stock rebellion with no gold, no credit, nothing. It was David versus Goliath, but David forgot his slingshot.
So what do you do when you're backed into a corner with no cash? Well, Congress did what governments have always done. They fired up the printing presses. They just printed money. $241 million worth of a new currency they called the Continental. And you have to understand, this paper wasn't backed by gold. It wasn't backed by silver. It was backed by nothing but a prayer, a pure gamble that America would somehow pull off a win. And that gamble, well, it backfired. Big time. Printing all that money didn't just fund the war. No, it lit a fire under the entire economy, starting a crisis that came dangerously close to burning the whole revolution to the ground from the inside out.
You know that old saying, not worth the Continental? This is where it comes from. By 1779, the currency had totally collapsed. We're talking runaway hyperinflation. Imagine this, a new suit of clothes setting you back $1 million in paper money. The very thing they were using to pay the troops was becoming a punchline.
Just look at the devastation here. The value was just gone, wiped out. Inflation was skyrocketing, close to 50%. You think the troops at Valley Forge had it tough with the British? The real enemy was the economy. They were freezing, starving, and deserting in droves because the money they were paid was literally worthless. It couldn't buy them a thing.
Now, you might think this was just a rookie mistake, bad economic policy. But it was much, much worse than that. This was deliberate. This was economic warfare. The British launched what was basically the world's first modern currency attack. They had printing presses running on warships right in New York Harbor, pumping out millions in fake but very high-quality Continentals. Their goal? Flood the market, crack inflation to the max, and break the back of the American economy. Then came a glimmer of hope, the Battle of Saratoga in '77. It wasn't just a military win, it was a huge financial victory. A credit event, you could call it. It was the proof of concept the French needed to finally open their wallets and send some real money our way. But even with those loans, back home, the economy was still in a nosedive. The American startup, its IPO, was on the verge of being delisted permanently. So, the government is broke. The money is trash. It looks like it's all over. And then, two men step in. Not generals, not politicians, private citizens. They were, for all intents and purposes, the first whales in American finance, and they were about to bail out the entire country.
First up, Robert Morris, the superintendent of finance. When the country's credit rating was absolute zero, Morris basically said, fine, use mine. He put his own personal wealth and reputation on the line. He used his private shipping company to smuggle weapons in from Europe. He signed for massive loans using his own name. The man put his skin in the game, literally.
And Morris couldn't have done it without his partner, Haym Salomon. Now, Salomon was a genius, a financial wizard in Philadelphia. Think of him as the best Forex trader of the 18th century. His job, his critical job, was to take these paper loans from the French and the Dutch and turn them into cold, hard cash, real gold and silver, the stuff you could actually use to pay a soldier or buy a cannon.
Let me put it this way. What Morris and Salomon did, it was nothing less than a private equity bailout of the entire American Revolution. And make no mistake, without their money, without their financial know-how, the war was over.
It would have been lost on a balance sheet long before the victory at Yorktown.
Okay, so the war is won. But what about all that debt, that mountain of worthless paper? This is where it all comes together. This is the moment the chaos of war debt transforms into the foundation of the entire American financial system.
You can see the whole crazy ride right here. It starts in 75 with the printing presses. By 79, it's a total disaster, pure hyperinflation. Then in 81, Morris and Solomon ride to the rescue. But the final act, the thing that changed everything, that happens in 1790.
Enter Alexander Hamilton, the new nation's first Treasury Secretary. And he comes up with a plan that is just brilliant. He says, give me all of it. All the messy, worthless, complicated war debt from every state, from the Continental Congress, all of it. He consolidates it. And then he works his magic. He restructures the whole $80 million mess into new federal bonds. And for the first time, these bonds are backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. In one move, he took the country's biggest weakness and turned it into its single greatest strength.
And those bonds, those brand new government bonds, they became the very first thing traded on what would become the New York Stock Exchange. A bunch of guys standing under a buttonwood tree on a small street called Wall Street. The blood-soaked debt of the revolution became the bedrock of American capitalism.
So what's the takeaway? It's a lesson we still live by in the markets today. Debt, it's just a tool, a powerful one. But it means nothing without belief. Without faith in the government and the system behind it, it's all just worthless paper. Always has been, always will be. This is Steve. Respect the ledger. I'll see you at the open.